Red Bull just triggered something the FIA did not expect. And now, everyone is watching them. Because after the first day in Japan, the data shows something that doesn't make sense. Not a small issue. Not a normal performance drop. Something irregular. Max Verstappen is over 1 second off the pace. After upgrades. After a full redesign of key parts of the car. And somehow, the car is not just slow. It's inconsistent. One corner it looks competitive. The next, it completely disappears. And that's the detail that changes everything. Because the FIA doesn't react to slow cars. They react to unpredictable behavior. To patterns that don't match expectations. To systems that don't behave the same way twice. And that's exactly what Red Bull showed in Suzuka. A car that gains, then suddenly loses. A car that looks stable, then feels on the edge. And when that happens, it raises one very uncomfortable question. Is this just a performance problem? Or is something deeper going on inside the RB22? Stay with me, because what Red Bull just revealed might explain not only Japan, but the direction of their entire season. At first, nothing looked alarming. That's what made it so dangerous. Red Bull arrived in Suzuka with a clear objective. Fix the problem. Not hide it. Not manage it. Fix it. Because Bahrain raised doubts. China raised concerns. But Japan was supposed to bring answers. They came with upgrades. Not small ones. A complete revision of how the car manages airflow. A redesigned sidepod concept. A new engine cover. A reinforced floor to handle more load. This wasn't a minor adjustment. This was a shift in philosophy. And when a team like Red Bull changes philosophy this early in the season, it tells you one thing. They already knew something was wrong. But here's where the story takes a turn. Because when the car hit the track in FP1, it didn't look broken. It didn't look out of control. In fact, it looked almost normal. Verstappen was pushing. The car responded. Through the first sector, through the flowing corners, it held together. And for a moment, it created a very dangerous illusion. That maybe, just maybe, the upgrades were working. But then you look at the numbers. 7th place. Nearly 8/10 off the fastest lap. And suddenly, that illusion starts to crack. Because Red Bull doesn't measure success like that. They don't aim for, not bad. They aim for control. Dominance. And this was neither. But the real warning sign wasn't the position. It was how the lap was built. Because if you break it down, corner by corner, the RB22 wasn't consistently losing time. It was losing it in phases. Small sections where the car looked competitive, followed by moments where it simply dropped away. And that kind of behavior is exactly what makes engineers uncomfortable. Because a slow car can be improved. A predictable weakness can be targeted. But a car that changes its behavior within the same lap, that's something else entirely. And at this point, Red Bull already had the first signs. They just didn't know yet how serious it was about to become. And this is where everything starts to unravel. Because FP2 removes the illusion. The track is faster now. Grip is higher. The conditions are cleaner. This is where every team shows their real pace. And Red Bull falls apart. Verstappen drops to 10th. Not slightly lower. Completely out of the fight. More than a full second behind the fastest lap. And here's the part that changes everything. The gap didn't stabilize. It got worse. Which tells you something critical. The more the car is pushed, the less it responds. And that's not normal. Because when the track improves, top teams unlock more performance. They get closer. Red Bull is doing the opposite. And now, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. It's not just Verstappen. His teammate is even further back. 15th place. Same car. Same upgrades. Same limitations. Which confirms one thing immediately. This is not a driver issue. This is the RB22. And this is where Suzuka becomes brutal. Because this track doesn't hide weaknesses. It amplifies them. Every high-speed corner, every long acceleration zone, every moment where the car needs to stay balanced, it gets exposed. You can see it in the way Verstappen drives. Small corrections. Tiny hesitations. Moments where he doesn't fully commit. And that's not hesitation. That's adaptation. He's adjusting to something the car is doing unexpectedly. And when a driver like Verstappen has to adapt mid-corner, lap time disappears instantly. But here's the most important detail. The loss is not constant. It comes and goes. One section looks competitive. The next, the car just fades. And that inconsistency is exactly what caught attention. Because now, it's no longer about how much time Red Bull is losing. It's about how they're losing it. And that difference is what turns a performance issue into something much more serious. And this is exactly the point where the FIA steps in. Not publicly, not with statements, but with attention. Because when a car behaves like this, it gets monitored very closely. The FIA doesn't just look at lap times. They analyze how performance is generated, energy deployment curves, thermal patterns, power delivery consistency. And what Red Bull showed on Friday doesn't follow a clean pattern. It spikes, then drops, then spikes again, which immediately raises a question inside the system. Why? Because under the new regulations, everything is supposed to be controlled, predictable, stable, especially when it comes to hybrid systems. And this is where things start to connect. Red Bull's design philosophy? Extremely tight packaging, very aggressive cooling concept, minimal drag, maximum efficiency on paper, but in reality, it creates a very narrow operating window. A window where everything works perfectly, until it doesn't. And when it falls outside that window, performance drops instantly. Not gradually. Instantly. That's exactly what the FIA data is detecting. Moments where the system delivers full power, followed by moments where it pulls back, to protect itself, to manage temperature, to avoid failure. And this is the key detail. Because we've already seen what happens when it goes too far. China. ERS overheating. Race over. Now in Suzuka. It's not failing, but it's dancing on that same edge. And that's what creates the inconsistency. Not a lack of performance. A lack of stability in that performance. And here's why that matters so much. Because in Formula 1, if your car is predictably slow, you can plan around it. You can defend. You can strategize. But if your car is unpredictable, you can't trust it. Not on entry. Not on exit. Not when you need it most. And that's exactly the situation Verstappen is dealing with. He's not just driving fast. He's managing risk, managing temperature, managing a system that might not respond the same way twice. And that changes everything. Because now, Red Bull is not pushing for performance. They're controlling it, holding it back, trying to keep the car inside that narrow window where it still works. And that's the part that really caught the FIA's attention. Because when a team starts managing performance like that, it means one thing. They know the limit, and they know how dangerous it is to cross it. Which leads to the final, uncomfortable realization. What Red Bull revealed in Suzuka was not their true pace. It was a controlled version of it. A version designed to survive the problem, not solve it. And if that's the case, then the real performance of the RB22 might be even more unstable than what we've already seen. Which leaves one question hanging over the entire weekend. What happens when they can no longer control it? And this is where the situation becomes critical. Because up until now, Red Bull has been controlling the problem, managing it, containing it. But a race doesn't allow that. Not for long. Friday is about data, short runs, careful limits. You can lift earlier. You can avoid certain stresses. You can protect the car. Sunday is different. Full fuel, long stints, constant pressure, lap after lap, no break. And this is exactly where everything Red Bull revealed starts to become dangerous. Because that narrow operating window gets harder to maintain. Temperatures rise, energy demand increases, and suddenly, the system is pushed beyond the point where it feels safe. This is where the FIA concern becomes real. Not because Red Bull is breaking rules, but because they are operating extremely close to the edge of what's sustainable. And when you live on that edge, one small change is enough. Track temperature, dirty air, a longer battle on track, anything, and the balance is gone. The power drops. The car becomes unpredictable. And now, imagine this in the middle of the race. Verstappen defending. Cars behind closing in. He goes into a high-speed section, expects the same response, and suddenly, it's not there. That's the real risk. Not just losing time. Losing control of performance when it matters most. And here's the part almost nobody is talking about. This doesn't just affect speed. It affects strategy. Because Red Bull cannot simply push flat out for an entire stint. They have to manage, lift slightly, protect temperatures. Which means one thing. They are leaving performance on the table. Intentionally. And if you're managing pace in modern Formula 1, you're vulnerable. Because the cars behind you are not managing. They are attacking. And once they understand where Red Bull is weak, they will time their moves perfectly. Right when the RB22 cannot respond. Right when the system pulls back. Right when Verstappen has no extra power to defend. And that's how a dominant team becomes exposed. Not in one big moment, but in small, predictable weaknesses. that others can exploit. Which leads to the final, uncomfortable truth. What Red Bull revealed in Suzuka didn't just worry the FIA. It gave their rivals a blueprint. A map of where the car breaks down, where it hesitates, where it can be attacked. And once that map exists, you cannot hide it anymore. So now, the entire weekend builds toward one moment. Not qualifying. Not even the start. But the point in the race? Where Red Bull is forced to stop managing and start pushing. Because that's when we'll see the real RB22. Not the controlled version. Not the safe version. The real one. And if what the FIA is seeing is accurate, that moment could change everything. And this is where everything finally connects. Because what we are seeing in Suzuka is not the problem itself. It's the symptom. The visible part of something much deeper. Because if you go back to the beginning of this story, to Bahrain, to China, the signs were already there. Balance issues, lack of confidence, sudden drops in performance, and then, the failure. ERS overheating, complete shutdown. At the time, it looked like an isolated issue. A one-off. Something unfortunate. But now, with everything we've seen in Japan, it doesn't look isolated anymore. It looks connected. Because what the FIA is seeing now is not just a car that struggles. It's a car that operates too close to its own limits. All the time. And that leads to the real conclusion. Red Bull didn't just build a difficult car. They built a car that only works in a perfect scenario. Perfect temperatures. Perfect airflow. Perfect balance. And Formula 1 doesn't give you perfection. It gives you variables. Constant ones. And every variable pushes that car outside its ideal window. That's why the performance looks inconsistent. That's why Verstappen can't trust it. That's why the gap grows when conditions improve. Because the closer everyone gets to the limit, the further Red Bull falls away from it. And now, the most important piece of this entire story. This is not something you fix quickly. This is not a setup change. This is not a small upgrade. This is architecture, design philosophy, decisions made months ago. And that's exactly why the FIA attention matters so much. Not because Red Bull is doing something illegal, but because they are showing something extreme. A concept pushed so far that it becomes unstable under real conditions. And when that happens, the entire grid learns from it. Other teams adjust. Regulators observe. And the advantage you were chasing becomes a weakness everyone understands. Which brings us to the final reality. Red Bull is no longer hiding anything. Suzuka exposed it. The data confirmed it. The FIA noticed it. And now, every team on the grid knows exactly where the RB22 breaks. So this weekend is no longer just about points. It's about survival. About damage limitation. About getting through a race distance. Without that narrow window collapsing completely. Because if it does, this won't just be a bad result. It will be confirmation. Confirmation that Red Bull's biggest strength, their aggressive design, has become their biggest weakness. And once that shift happens in Formula 1, it doesn't go away overnight.